Hi there everyone, we're here to learn how to read a kilowatt hour meter, and by learning how to read a kilowatt hour meter we're also going to be able to figure out how much energy was used in a certain time interval for that. And let's take a look at several different types of kilowatt hour meters. These are sometimes known as electrical meters, and these would be normally outside of a house or an apartment building. But there's several different types that you'll see. The first type and the older type that you might see are what we call a dial meter. And these, on the face of it here, has these dials. And these little dials go around as this little disc here spins. Another type that you might see, this is a newer meter. Some of these are smart meters, but this is a digital readout. And basically they accomplish the same goal. Electricity comes into the box, and then from there it goes to the meter and then into your house, and it can determine how much energy you've actually used over a given time interval. So let's go over and take a look at how we actually take a reading from one of these. So suppose this is the dial of a meter that we have. Let's take a look at what we're dealing with. What I want you to think about here is, think of these as the digits. This is like the ones column. This is like the tens column. This one right here would be the hundreds column. This would be the thousands column, and then this would be the 10,000s column. Now, one thing to note, I want to make a mention of here, notice this, the ones column, the reading goes this way. The dial is going to actually move that way. It goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, and so forth and so on. Over here in the tens column, notice that our meter actually, the dial on this one spins the opposite direction. And likewise, this one spins this way, this one spins this way, and that one spins that way. So it's kind of important as we're getting a reading from this that we're ensuring that we know which direction it's going, because that's going to help us determine what number we're dealing with. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at how to read this meter. So notice, again, in this one right here, I'm going to start on the left-hand side and read over. Basically, I notice here that this is at the 0. It hasn't reached the 1 yet. So the first digit is actually a 0. My next one over, notice again, it's just moved a little bit past the 0, but it hasn't quite reached this 1 here yet. So that still isn't a 1, so that's a 0 as well. Over here, this is in the hundreds place value. Notice that, again, it's gone from the 0 to the 1. It's past the 1, but it hasn't quite reached the 2 yet. So we know this is going to be a 1. The next one up spins this direction. Again, notice here, going this direction, notice how it has, it's past the 5. It looks like it might be right at the 6, but I'm not quite sure where this actually is. So what I like to do in these cases, when you can't really tell, is I like to go to the next dial over. And here I notice this one is just past the 1 here. So that's telling me that I'm probably just a little bit past the 6. So it actually is probably a 6 there, and then this is actually is a 1. Alright, so the way we would read this is 161 kilowatt hours. Now suppose some time passes by and later we find that this dial has moved just slightly this way. This one's moved slightly this way. We've got this one right here, and it's moved about there. And we find out that this one has moved around, so it's about right here. And this dial has moved to about right here. Let's get a new reading from this one. So once again, notice if I start on the left-hand side and read to the right, my first one hasn't got to the 1 yet, so that's going to be a 0. My second one over is hasn't reached a 1 yet, so it's still a 0. Notice that in my third one here, and the one that's in the middle, it has already passed the 2, but it hasn't quite reached 3 yet, so that's in the 200s place value. My second one right here is going this way around. It's past the 4, but it hasn't quite reached the 5, so that's going to be a 4. So that's in the tens place value. And my last one is spinning this direction. Notice again, it has passed the 4, but hasn't quite reached the 5. So we would read that as 244 kilowatt hours. So the question now is, how much energy was actually used in this example? Well, at some time in the future, we have, let me erase that here and start over again. We have 244 kilowatt hours of energy that's been used. And let me go back real quick. And look, we have 161 kilowatt hours previously. So basically, the amount of energy used from this time period, the beginning time period, to this sometime later, is the difference between these two. When we subtract these, we'll find out that there's a total of 83 kilowatt hours being used.